All right. That little
Yeah,
ding means that we are recording and we are alive. Hey Brett, welcome to another Midwest Mindset, man. How are you doing?
I'm good, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm wearing my Icelandic sweater that I got, authentic Iceland sweater,
It's
because
beautiful.
it's changing temperatures here. It's getting a little chilly.
It is chilly this morning. Chilly and a little windy, and let's bring it on.
I agree. This is that transition. I'm ready for it now. We were really blessed with a pretty warm October, and
Yeah,
even the beginning of November. It's been crazy. So
yeah. I completely agree with you. I'm happy with this. Get the firewood out. Let's get some fires going. Read
perfect. Do
some
you have a
books.
fireplace in your house?
Yeah, we got a couple of them. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah. So the wood burners. I mean,
I
our
love
house
that
is
song.
built in the 20s, so we've got the wood burning, and yeah, it's still cool with me. I'm all right with it. I like building a fire. It's fun.
Oh, for sure, for
Teaches the
sure.
kids, a couple different things too. Old school, but
Oh,
yeah.
really? Oh, yeah.
Oh
So did
yeah.
they help out and stuff, or
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's like, go out to the wood pile, and it's the preparation and everything, so you
sure?
actually have to use your hands and get everything going, and it takes time. You got to be patient, and yeah, so
Right.
it's kind of fun. But yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because when I grew up, we actually that's the only way we heated our house was actually a fire,
Really?
but not like the fireplace like you're talking about, like a comfortable, nice, let's sit by the fire. Ours was
Yeah,
literally this huge, like metal contraption in our basement that we
sure.
literally had to feed, every 2 hours almost in order to stay up on top of it. But so
Crazy.
it's different the transition now. But I love a good fireplace, especially in the
Yeah.
home.
My buddy's got a cabin up north that's that way.
Oh,
So
really?
I can relate to it, but I couldn't even imagine having it be my home
Yeah.
every single day in the winter, having to, keep that wood stocked and keeping the house warm. I'm sure that was a process. So
Yeah, I mean, we used to, so sidebar here, I guess,
yeah,
from our
man,
topic,
whatever.
but I mean, we were talking
Yeah.
about like, so we had a fireplace. It was this huge fireplace. So I guess it wasn't every 2 hours if we really just loaded it with wood. But,
Yeah.
but we had to be careful. If you load it too much, then it literally got too hot in the house too.
Yeah.
Not that that was always a problem because this was our house was, you said 1920s. Ours was at least 100-year-old farmhouse when we lived in
Wow.
it. And that was back in the 1980s.
Yeah,
To,
sure.
to date myself. But uh, what was interesting when it really got cold, like when we're talking like the 30 below days and stuff, I remember
Yeah.
waking up at like 2 in the morning because either me or my brother Jeff would wake up and we'd have to stoke it up because otherwise we'd wake up and man, it'd be freezing in the morning.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
for sure.
Those are the
Um,
hard lessons. Those are the good lessons, right?
oh
Like,
yeah, right. For sure, for sure.
yeah.
So, hey, so just a quick recap. So last week, we talked about, our action step was I don't know. Did you have an opportunity to use that at all? That statement?
Uh, I actually did. I did with a customer. I didn't know the answer to a certain question, and I
Ooh, I'm
basically just
intrigued by
said,
this. Tell me more.
well, I just said, I don't know. I said, well, why does, and I don't want to get into too many details. I don't know.
Right.
Just from, yeah, but it was more, they were wondering about a lab result with a certain patient. And they said, why did this drop as well? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to find out for you. And went ahead and made a quick phone call and got him an answer. But I think I thought about that was idea A, right? Like say, I don't know, and say, I don't know, but I'm going to
Sure.
find out. And they're just
Sure.
like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
It's probably annoying for them at first, but think about the alternative. If I
Right.
say, oh yeah, I think it's because of this, or it could be this or this or this. And now you're going down a hole. And you're like, what is this guy rambling about? He doesn't even know. Because I've done that before, where you
Sure.
ramble on about
I have
something that
too.
you have no clue what you're even talking about. And it's like, I don't know. And even I catch myself sometimes now where I go, yeah, it's probably, you know what? I don't know. So I'm going to make a phone call. I'll be back in 10 minutes. And that's what I did. And yeah, it was all good. So
I,
yeah.
so I love that because you by doing the latter, you lose credibility with that person. But
Yeah.
I have done that before, to your point. But what I actually have found is the way you did it. Actually, you actually not only have more credibility, but you're following up. So you show that you're not only that the conversation that you had mattered to them, that you're saying, hey, I don't know yet, but I'm going to follow up with that. So I actually think you bring more value to that interaction as, with customers anyway. So I think that's a perfect example. Yeah.
Oh, great. Glad this guy's not trying to just, talk through something that he doesn't understand. I completely agree.
You come across more authentic, more real. I mean, that's awesome, man. Very cool.
How about you? Did you use it?
So mine is completely different context. So not in a personal career, but I did it. So I went up north to my mom and dad's and we went deer hunting. It's kind of a yearly tradition I do with my cousins, my brother, my dad, and it's just a great opportunity to just spend some time outside and be with them. And so I did it like 3 different times, like very specifically in a group setting where we don't necessarily agree with things politically. Maybe we don't agree with certain things that are going on, locally with, politics, whatever it might be.
Sure.
Instead of judging or instead of jumping into something, I used it, and I'm like, I don't know. And then I was showed, some curiosity with them on understanding whatever the situation was. Yeah. But it was really interesting how I used it in a way to kind of politely kind of realign the conversation and go down a different way that got them to get excited about, sharing their side of things, which I not necessarily agree with, but I was able to learn more. And
sure,
I don't know. It was a really interesting situation, but not
great.
Quite like your business situation, but it was fun.
But it turns a conversation from it sounds like, if I'm hearing you right, it seems like it could have been more of a like one of these, like kind of a
it could have been,
but it could have been, but you took the route of, I don't know, but I'm curious about this, and then it turns into a constructive conversation. Doesn't it? Or
I'm showing up. I'm showing up differently where I have the opportunity to just letting the puppy out. Showing up a little bit more. I don't know, just inquisitive to the point where I'm not judging. And
open.
Then what's great about it? Yeah, open, and then not coming across as putting my my viewpoint on something and really being curious. But I used what I guess that was a long way of saying I used I don't know as a way to answer if somebody said something that was kind of snarky or something kind of totally like would normally set me off. Instead I was like, oh, I don't know about that. Tell me more. Like what do you mean by that? And then letting people elaborate. I think, that's half of it. People just want to be heard or be validated that they've been heard. You just said, it seems like, what I mean? You're using some of the Chris Voss stuff, what I mean? Some of the little tools that we have to validate and just let people know that they've been heard. So I used it as a catalyst for that. And it actually was pretty effective. It was pretty cool.
I think people do just want to be heard. Actually, the new Minneapolis Police Department just hired a new police chief, and I heard an interview with him, and he said a lot of people just want to be understood as well. Like they just want to they want to be understood. Right. So my job is going to be to come in here and listen. And it's like I want to listen and I want to talk to the community, and it's all words, right? It's all words. But to your point, people just want to be heard. People want to be understood. If you think of like the 7 habits of highly effective people, first seek to understand. It's kind of that whole thing. So you're just trying. I don't know. I'm just trying to understand. Help me understand. Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool. Sounds like an awesome conversation. Did you guys kill anything?
No deer were harmed in the making of that weekend for sure.
All right. Okay.
It's kind of the way we kind of go. Some people don't make it out to their stands. They just have a good time kind of getting together. We played a lot of cards, a lot of cribbage. Are you a cribbage guy?
No, that's on my Leah and I's list for this winter. We're gonna play cribbage. We're gonna learn how to play cribbage. Figured cribbage, winter activity.
Fun game for sure. So all right, so that was the whole first half of this. I mean, just The subject for today though is what? Yeah, no, thanks for the follow-up. Thanks for that conversation.
Yeah.
The subject of today though is the stories we tell ourselves. Specifically the stories that have helped either framed us, positively, you know what I mean? Like, oh, one of the stories I told myself is that I am going to finish 4 years of school and I'm going to get a high paying job and I'm going to, apply myself, do all these different things. So from that story, or the stories that have limited us in the past, like this is where we can kind of get a little deep and we can go down a rabbit hole. But, the stories that have held us back from doing something, or what are the stories that you've held yourself back, limiting yourself from being the potential that you could possibly be? So that's kind of the topic. We can go in many different directions. What are your first thoughts when you hear that?
Yeah, I think of the neuroscience around it, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds about it, but I had kind of one of these moments where I listened. It was a podcast and a guy that wrote a book. Jared Horvath is his name, and I've listened to this one certain podcast, and it was an interview, and we can probably put it in the show notes. Stop talking, start influencing.
Oh wow!
And he's got a TED Talk as well. But you know how it is, where you hear it from certain people, and I'm sure other people have told me this. But for some reason, the way that he came across and the way that he explained things just really made sense to me. But really, our perception is our reality, and our perception is based on the story that we tell ourselves. And it's full neuroscience based in the brain. So whatever story you are telling yourself, you will believe that is your reality. And that is the perception in your mind. And it blew my mind when I heard him say it. I had to listen to the podcast like 2 or 3 times because it was crazy. So that's where
that goes. So I'm going to interject there because that literally was the topic on the Daily Stoic today. We were talking about.
Oh, was it really?
Well, it was a little bit. I mean, we talk about the story that we tell ourselves is how you're going to show up. So when we talk about, when Seneca says 95% of the things that we worry about or imagine never come to fruition. But unless you literally are telling yourself the story that I have anxiety about this, or I'm doing this, you know what I mean? You can see that play out because of that. And so like more than neuroscience, what do you mean by that? Like what part of the brain are we hitting?
Yeah, it's the oh geez, man, I don't know. There it is. I don't know. I can't remember actually. I don't remember what area of the brain it is. I can definitely follow up next week.
Okay.
But it is, he was full on neuroscientist who flat out did tons of research on it, and that's where we're at. So I mean, a story for me is a lot of my stuff is based on professional life or work right now, because the story I was telling myself with some of my customers is that they didn't want to talk to me. For the last year and a half, I haven't gotten a response back from a certain customer.
Right.
I'm sitting there going, you know what? This guy doesn't want to talk to me. I'm annoying him. He's not interested. I got an email last night. Hey, sure. Love to, not love, but I can connect with you next time you're down here.
Right.
Just let me know. And it was a like a 1-sentence answer. When the opposite story probably could have been, this guy's busy. This guy has a lot on his plate. What can I do to help him? Like maybe that could have been the better story besides the story of I'm annoying. I'm not helping. Oh my gosh, this person doesn't like me. Those types of things. These are all like child things that we tell ourselves. It's like almost like we beat ourselves up so much, where then the opposite is probably true as well. I think you could flip the coin and it could be a head or a tail. So the opposite could always be true. And that's where I have to check myself a lot and go, hey, what is true? What is true? Is it 100% true, the story that I'm telling myself? So that's kind of one quick one for me. But
wow, you couldn't have hit the nail more on the head of this week. This week, literally, this almost the identical situation happened to me. My manager was supposed to ride with me. She ended up riding with me Wednesday. And I've been trying to lock down this account. We've been in there before, but it's a new account. And it's interesting because we're like, I think she's ghosted us before. Like, we reach out, she's very nice, this particular person I'm trying to reach.
Yeah.
And they just normally, they're looking for our help. And so I'm like, all
Yeah.
right. So when we met with them, I'm like, hey, how can I serve you? How can I help? And so I
Yeah.
set the stage. And then when I reached back, when I knew my manager was coming, I'm like, this would be perfect to get her in here. And
Yeah.
yet I wasn't getting a response on email. And then I tried a separate different email, different time, twice,
Yeah.
2 weeks before this. And I'm like, what is going on? So my manager came with me and I said, you know what, we're just gonna do a cold stop in, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Cold stop in, see if she's there. We go in there. Yep, absolutely. Come on back. I'm like, what? Okay, we get in there. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Just kind of. She goes, oh, great. I just got back from Italy. I've been gone for 2.5 weeks. I'm like,
of course.
But what do you think that story was to my manager, to myself, all these different? It literally was like, she's ghosting us. You know what I mean? I even called a colleague. You know what I mean? Are you hearing from her? Nope, I haven't heard from her. What's going on? I thought they liked us. I thought they wanted to work with us.
Yeah.
And here she went away to Italy. And so by asking that question right away, I was able to kind of realize like it's 100% me. It's the crap I was telling myself. And so it's just, I guess it's just funny that your story rung so true with what I just had happen.
Well, but we could do it across friendships too, you know what I mean? Like you could do it across just any type of relationship. When somebody replies to you with a text or something and you take it the wrong way.
Right.
And you're sitting there going, they're probably just busy. It's usually what it is. Most people are not thinking about you. They're way too consumed in their life because they've got a lot going on. People are busy. And
well, I love, in looking into this and I can't wait to get into kind of the history of who we are today because of this. But Scott, is it Gorntu or Gontu? Is an author who has a book called he has a book out there, The Stories We Tell Ourselves. And one of the things he says, one of my the quote that really jumps out to me, and I think this applies to what you just said, is he says, false assumptions that lead to unnecessary anxiety.
Beautiful.
And I think it's so well said, right? It's all of these things that we assume one way or the other. Oh, this person doesn't like me, or this person doesn't see me as a leader. This person doesn't respect, who I am in my position or whatever. And it's changing that narrative from me to somebody else. So these false assumptions that we have in our own head build up this anxiety in ourselves, but it's because of all of it's self-induced, right?
Oh, 100%. And it's Dr. Amen. So it's Amen. He wrote a book. It's a children's book, actually. And it's about automatic negative thoughts.
Ants.
And the ants. Have you seen this? I mean, like it's a book that we read to our kids. I mean, because I want to try to, prepare them,
Sure.
more. I got like only got a few years here to set a foundation. I don't want them to be like me that much, so it's like,
well, don't say that because that's not true. You're a hell of a guy.
I'm kidding around. I'm kidding around.
Sure.
But it's these automatic negative thoughts. And it's like, and what he says is ask yourself the question, is that true? Are you 100% sure it's true?
Right.
And those are things that even little kids can do. But you know what? Adults are not that much different than little kids sometimes. I think a lot of times.
A lot of times worse. A lot of times they're worse because we just there was so much that we didn't know. And we weren't talking about this stuff, you know what I mean, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. We have more tools. Yeah.
Ants are huge. Jim Quick talks about it a ton, right? Automatic negative thoughts. Mind Valley, the Mind Valley website, and what is his name? Bashir talks about ants all the time. These automatic negative thoughts that we put in our head, and these false assumptions, and then what happens is they fester and they build. Because our brains are kind of wired that way. When you talk about neurochemistry, we're wired to think of the negative because it's protected us in the past, right? That hot boiling water on the stove, instead of grabbing it with your hand, you know what I mean? We know that you're going to get that negative reaction. We know that you got to be careful there, right? Because we're trying to protect ourselves. Our brains are designed that way.
Yeah.
So how do we get those automatic negative thoughts out of our head?
The first job of the brain is to protect us, like you just said. But
Right.
really, you have to challenge yourself. You have to challenge your thoughts, and you can't. It's hard. It's
Right.
harder than just the easy route is just go negative and kind of slouch through it. But you've got to really train yourself. I think that's where journaling comes in. I think that's where just the positive mindset. And I still go back. I was talking to my colleague yesterday about it. Neutral thinking. Don't go negative. If you're positive, great. But if you want to go negative, go neutral and just be like, here. And I know it sounds like it's non-emotional, but it's really not. It's just don't have a response for it. And if you can't think positive, just stay neutral. I think those, and it's so hard. Easier said, harder to do. But
I'm glad you brought that up though, because actually, this is our 41st episode, and out of all 41 episodes, we have some analytics on the back end through Anchor, through this podcast website. And what we found is our number one listened to episode was the one we did on neutral thinking.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And what I think is resonating with people is it's so easy to go to that negative, because it's easy to be negative. It's easy to put other people down and go down that road. So instead, neutral thinking is, at least, you don't have to be Pollyanna. And I get accused of that because guess what? I know I show up better when I'm more positive than if I'm throwing somebody under the bus, or then I'm being negative. In fact, I get crap from my kids all the time. You know what I mean? They might be blowing up about something or kind of, throwing somebody under the bus. And I'm the first to say, hey, give them the benefit of the doubt. And once again, I get, almost thrown out the door type of thing, saying, quit being so positive. Cause I am realistic. There's times when I'm like, that guy's a shit show. And I can blow up just as much as anybody else. I'm real. But what I'm getting at is I work hard to try to be a little bit more optimistic than pessimistic. And I think as long as I can show up as an optimist, not saying that things can't be bad at certain times, but it's knowing that they will be better down the road, and knowing that it serves me. It serves me to show up a little differently and a little bit better.
I just thought of a story. I thank you. Yeah, I agree with you there. I just thought of a story at a meeting. We were sitting around as a team, and people were going, so how do you start your day? People are like, how do you start your day? And I'm like, I get up at 5. And somebody's like, oh yeah, you got little kids. And I go, yeah, my kids get up at 6:30. They're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I get up, and they're like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, the first thing I do, and I'm like, I'm usually not that open about it with people because people are like, what, Mr. Positive, man. And I'm like, well, no, you know what? Here's what I do. And I was using Brendon Burchard's journal at that time. And I'm like, I write my message for the day. And people are like, and this one guy who's great, he's from Arkansas. I love him. He's an amazing guy. And he just goes, oh, so like that Saturday Night Live episode where they're like, I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And gosh darn it,
people like me. That's Al Franken, man.
Like,
that's Al Franken.
Was okay. So yeah, and I'm like, sure, yeah, if that works for you. I'm like, I'll do anything to get my mind in the right spot before I start the day.
Sure.
And it helps. It helps me, and it serves me the right way. And it's all about narrative. And the other piece is thought. What I heard once is thought nutrition. So like we talk about like food that we're taking in. Well, what thoughts are you taking in? What are you bringing in? I heard that from a mentor once. It's thought nutrition, so I thought that was kind of a cool way to put it. However, it works for people, right? It's just an idea, but yeah.
No, I totally agree. I mean, we talk about thoughts, we talk about that, those ants, right? Are you allowing negative, thoughts to come into your head? And not saying that you always have to be positive, but I mean, the more that you let the negative in, the more you're going to kind of manifest into that negative, story that we tell ourselves, right? Yeah. So instead, and that's why I think your morning habits are one of the biggest things that we kind of preach on this kind of, podcast, is that the way you start your morning is kind of setting yourself up for the rest of that day. So even making fun of it, like I love the high five thing. I still do it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Like literally give yourself a high five. It makes me smile, makes me laugh. Dad, it's cheesy. Absolutely it is. I don't care.
Yeah.
It works for me to kind of get me a little bit of a smile, a little bit of a positive way to start the day. And then I
Yeah.
can go and I can tackle a lot of different things.
I started, I got excited yesterday because I had a pretty sweet week. And I got excited because I got this new thing where I'm like, at the end of the week, I do like a recap on my wins. It's like you write down the wins. So even they're really small,
Sure.
what did you do? You know what I mean? And you can almost write yourself a story, and you write that story that you can tell yourself. And,
Yeah.
because otherwise you can write down all those, like, because there's probably one or two things that happened that'll stick in my mind. And there's one thing that I can think about that I wish would have went a different route.
Sure.
And I could have done something different.
Sure.
And I'm like, but that's one of many things that were positive this week.
Yeah.
That was one thing that was kind of it wasn't even negative. It was probably neutral.
Right.
But I will think it's negative. So I just got to write all those things down too, because then you're fueling your mind with some of those positive stories, those stories that you can continue to go back to. So
yeah. I like that. I like the intentionality of that, because that's one of the things that I think I've really learned from journaling is like you said, you kind of recap the week. I go back when I start Monday to start my journal Monday. I go back and look, and I'm a visual learner too. So I'll throw pictures like during the week. If I'll write something like this happened today. I did this today, felt this way, whatever. I'll click a picture or something that happened that day and put it in there. And so I go back on kind of Sunday night or Monday, roughly between those 2 days, and try to evaluate. I guess I'm not collecting my wins maybe, but I'm looking for the things that, I feel good about. But to your point earlier, you know what I mean? The food we put in our body is the same thing as our, the thoughts that we put in our head. So let's be a little bit more intentional about how we do that. Because on the reverse side of it, and the story I was going to say is that I remember when we talk about the stories we tell ourselves, like I remember looking back at pictures of a kid, and I did a little bit of a talk on this and when I did the high five challenge for me, I talked about this, like the story I used to tell myself when I was a little kid, like, oh, Paul's not that great of a learner. He's not good at school. So, he's going to be a tradesperson. Paul's, a little slow. So he's not going to be a runner. So he can be a lineman rather than a running back or something in sports. All the different things that I would tell myself, that all of a sudden I started, whether I knew it or not, because I was just a kid at the time, I started living that lifestyle that way. And some of the best success stories that we hear out there is when, a lot of times it takes something a little bit more traumatic for somebody to all of a sudden happen, and then they change. We talk about hardships in life, but it goes back to the one thing that I do wear around my neck. We talk about, the obstacle that is in the way becomes the way. Some of the most difficult things that you do in life help set you up for the success that you want to have in life. Like, I go back to, my kind of my big aha was when, falling off, and breaking my pelvis, saying that I'm not going to let that define me. And now I've re-engaged my, workout routine and my, being an instructor, even to a new level that I never thought was possible.
Yeah.
So don't let those stories limit you from being the person that you truly want to be.
Yeah.
Because it used to with me. It used to slow me down and used to say that I can't do this. Now I run marathons, right? You run marathons. Like all these different things that we used to tell ourselves, specifically when we were kids, that held us back from doing that. Don't let let's find ways to overcome that. You know what I mean? By using some of these tools and also being knowledgeable of what is, these ants, that we run into each and every day.
Yeah. Man, that was great. I can't follow that up, Paul. That's just incredible. But I would say that.
So what was the story you used to tell yourself as a kid? Give me an example.
I was called Speedy. I was called Speedy when I would run. You want to know why?
Why?
I was super slow. So I would run and people would be like, dude, you got to run. And I'm like, I am running. It's as fast as I can go. Like, you're not running. I'm running to first base, and the guy at shortstop like bobbles it 4 or 5 times, throws it over the first baseman's head. First baseman runs to the fence, grabs it, touches the base, and I'm still not there yet. I mean, I was super slow. So do you think I got faster as a kid? Do you think I thought I was
Right?
fast? No.
Do
I
you
was
do you think
labeled
you
as a
tried,
slow
you know?
runner. No.
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh, man, I'm slow. There's no
right.
way I'm getting faster." So, no, I never got but then I think there was a moment, like, it was probably in college or something, and, I'm like, "You know what? Let's see if I can get quicker." And I had a coach that said, "You're too old to get quick." And
Ooh.
he knew what he was doing. And I
Yeah, that
know
would
this guy. He's like in his 70s, man. Like, and I was the captain of the team. I'm like,
for
you know
sure.
what? Go after yourself. I'll get faster over the summer. I don't even know. I didn't even need to drop weight, but I dropped like 15 pounds. And I came back and I was fast. Like it was like or
Oh
quicker
my
because I had less weight on me, I guess. And I was just
yeah, well, that could
I
be.
found a guy that I could work out with that was just as kind of driven to to play well. And I had like my senior year, and I was actually a quicker player, which was kind of funny. But so I wasn't too old, coach. So not to bring the
Right.
glory days up, but yeah, I thought I was
No.
slow too. I was slow, and
Okay.
it comes back to that narrative. And can you put it on a loudspeaker for everyone else to hear? And would you be happy with what you're saying to yourself? Because those
Right.
are those stories, man. I keep coming back to that. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, make sure you're
Yeah.
telling yourself the right story.
It's so interesting. Real quick, you just reminded me. I couldn't believe it
Yeah,
because
yeah, man.
I wrote down like, oh, Paul was too slow, he was too fat, all these different things. You just reminded me though, and I don't know if it was a coach, but I remember one summer I wanted to be faster for football. We had a really good season one year. We took second in
Yeah.
state. I wanted to be faster the next year. I remember taking a parachute shoulder. Have you ever seen one of those things where you put on your back a
Oh,
parachute?
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and you ran, and I literally would run up and down this our alfalfa field right next to our farm,
That's
and I'd
awesome.
run up and down this thing. The neighbors must have thought I was flipping crazy because they could see from a distance just this guy running with a parachute.
It's
But
awesome.
it was a strengthening and a speed conditioning, and literally I was much faster the next football season, and I totally forgot about that story until you just said that
That's
example.
cool. That's cool.
Ah,
That's
thanks,
really cool.
man. I
The
just
thing
yeah,
that's
glory days for
solid,
sure.
man.
Glory days
Well,
for
hell
sure.
yeah, man. But you got to think back to those ones too. Good reflection on it and where you were
Sure.
and where you are now. And I think about like the people that we surround ourselves with. And I always go back to that, but I think
Yeah.
I was surrounded by people who were, maybe just they didn't do it to hurt anyone. They weren't like saying things to hurt my feelings. But then you get around a new group of people who are just kind of driven in the same direction as you are,
Right.
want to succeed. It's like, yeah, you might be slow, but you still got all these other things that you're good at. You're an asset.
Right.
We're still gonna use you. You're still fine. So
It goes back to the average of the five people you're around. But as
yeah,
kids, our parents always said, "Hey, don't hang around with certain kids and that type of thing." And
right.
it was so evident, but it's just another way to say it. You are the average of the five people you hang around with, right?
Yeah,
So are they adding to your cup, or are they taking
yeah,
away from it, right? And
yeah,
and so even now, like challenge yourself. What are the stories we're telling ourselves now? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Are you a good parent? Are you a good husband? Are you a good, a spouse? Are you a good employee? Or some of these stories, like I think one of the takeaways would be like, let's challenge ourselves to think about what are the stories we tell ourselves now that
yeah.
define us negatively, that we can kind of use some of these tools to counteract, or what are the things that are you're telling yourself that are
Yeah.
serving you, and how to amplify that up. How do you turn that up?
And I think you hit on a point there where, and you usually say this, where it's like, listeners, we make it sound so easy.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't have my boss, and it's true. I don't have your boss.
right,
So if you're looking for external narratives, people that can, think about what they're saying to you too, like maybe it's a manager or it's a colleague. Are they filling your cup? Are they giving you the story you really want? Or can you change that story? Go find somebody that can give you a better story, that can actually compliment you on the things that your strengths and not your
yeah,
weaknesses. And or not even your weaknesses, your areas that you can actually improve on. Because we don't, man, nobody's perfect at all. I go back
yeah,
to what the teacher told me 3 weeks ago at the high school I was at. the big sign is don't try and be perfect because nobody is. And it's
Right.
super true. So if you need external validation, go get it from somebody that you know is really going to be positive around you and a positive influence. So yeah. But
Yeah. And just to follow up on that, Jay Shetty has this quote. It says, "Confident people focus on improvement, not perfection."
yeah,
So
that's awesome.
so focus on that improvement. You know what I mean? So what one story that, I guess for an in action item right here, you know what I mean?
Hey,
I
yeah.
think would be great. Like find the one negative story, one ant that you have that you tell about yourself. And for next week, what's the one thing that you're telling yourself that's holding you back from doing something? And how do we reverse that? How do we turn that around, or just call it out? What is that ant that, that story that's holding you back? Automatic negative thinking, that's holding you back out there. What's that one ant that you can reverse for next week?
I love that. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm definitely gonna spitball that one, and because I think I already have one, but I wanna wait. By the way, this is the itchiest sweater for those of you listening. I'm like dialing it in. And
do you have a t-shirt underneath?
I do.
Yeah,
but I'm learning.
It's a nice looking sweater, Paul. I like it.
Really brings up my eyes. Anyway, hey, I digress, man. Hey, I think we're at time here, but
yeah.
Boy, that flew by. That was great. It was great chatting with you as always.
You
and
too.
Man, I hope you have a great weekend. Do you have any big plans?
No, I traveled a bit for work this week, so I'm hoping to, get up in the morning and watch some cartoons.
Yeah.
And
Saturday morning cartoons. My
relax
favorite.
a little bit, buddy. Yeah. Not a whole lot, man. Not a whole lot. You? What are you doing?
I'm gonna go hang out with my family again. We're last weekend of hunting, and so I'm
awesome.
If I make it out into the woods, great. If not, I can spend some quality time with Dad. Today's Veterans Day, so thank you to all the veterans that are out there, and my dad's definitely one of them. And so I'm gonna go up there and celebrate with him today. So
happy Veterans Day for sure. And I do like venison. So
okay. All right. Well, hey, if I get something, I'll share it with you for sure.
I love it, man. Cool.
All right, man. Take care. You bet.